Hi, everyone. My name is John Morganelli. I'm a former Ivy League admissions director from Cornell University, and I'm excited to talk about college admissions with you today. Before we get started, I want to share a little bit about my background and my experience. I have worked at three different schools here in the United States. I worked at Moravian University, Lehigh University, and Cornell University, most recently as the director of admissions for the College of Arts and Sciences at Cornell. I've personally reviewed over 30,000 applications for admission over a span of a decade working in this space. I was invited down to the University of Pennsylvania to review their evaluation selection method back when I worked at Lehigh University. And I was fortunate to be able to be part of hosting the Ivy Plus conference. For those of you who don't know what the Ivy Plus conference is, there's a group of schools, the Ivy League plus MIT, Duke, and Stanford. And every couple years, the enrollment managers from those schools get together and they have an enrollment summit on one of the college campuses. In 2017, we hosted it in Ithaca, New York. And so I was fortunate to have access and engagement with all of the deans and directors from the top tier schools in the United States. And finally, I managed every aspect of the review process and the enrollment management process at Cornell University, where we had over 20,000 applications for admission per year, had a staff comprised of mostly PhD level faculty, and I've hired and trained over 40 seasonal application readers per year throughout my career. I'm looking forward to sharing a lot of insight with you today. Before we jump into the nitty-gritty details about how to build a college application and what is compelling when building an academic story, I want to start with where we are in the college admissions space. Post-pandemic, a lot of things have changed. One of the things that I've noticed that changed the most was the number of applications that are going to top-tier schools. I mean, it's always been competitive to apply to a top-tier university, but once the pandemic hit and the top-tier schools started to alleviate or reduce some of their requirements, not requiring a standardized test, not requiring an interview. What happened was that more people started to apply. And what we saw was significantly lower admit rates because, of course, if you have more people applying, you will have a lower acceptance rate. And so I will note that although those acceptance rates are significantly lower, if you look at NYU, for example, and you get a sense of, wow, it went from somewhere around 20% admit rate pre-pandemic to somewhere around 9 or 10% admit rate, maybe 11 post-pandemic. Is that representative of the competitiveness? Is it significantly more competitive now post-pandemic with more applications than it was pre-pandemic? I would say it's about the same level of competitiveness. It does appear more competitive, but for the most part, weaker applicants have applied because of the relaxed requirements. And thus, it hasn't really increased or enhanced the competition. That said, the dynamic of this space, the way we engage with people post-pandemic has changed. And so the way you describe yourself, your engagement, and your story does need to change a bit. But I don't necessarily think that the environment has become significantly more competitive than it was pre-pandemic. For those of you who are interested in learning about college admissions and hopefully making strategic decisions that enhance your chances of earning an offer from the schools that you're looking to enroll in, I think it's important that we have a standard understanding of the terms. The terms are important so that we're talking about the same thing. So I want to go through a few definitions about college admissions terms today and share some insight about how these terms impact the strategy. So first is academic direction. You're going to hear me talk about that a lot, the academic direction, because colleges and universities want to know, what are you interested in studying? So your academic direction is what I'm referring to is, what are you generally most interested in high school? Are you interested in humanities? Are you interested in the social sciences? Are you interested in STEM areas? That's your general academic direction. More specifically, from an academic direction, you will identify a major, a prospective major, or an actual major. When I say a prospective major, that's what you're going to be listing on your application for admission. That's what the reader is going to note that they think you want to study. Your actual major doesn't happen until you get to college and you declare it. Usually second semester of sophomore year is when you will declare your major. Sometimes the prospective major and the actual major are the same, but many times they change. So it's important to recognize that those are two separate things. And most of the time when I'm discussing majors, I'm referring to the prospective major because that's what's going to go on the application for admission. The next term that I want to note is holistic review. The reason college admissions in the United States is so complex is because of holistic review. Holistic review means that in addition to the quantitative data points like GPA and standardized test or academic rigor, they're going to also look at qualitative information to determine who you are, how you spend your time, your energy, what you add to or contribute to a community. So holistic review means that they're going to look at the whole person. It's important to note that that does not necessarily mean that they want a well-rounded student. I hear people say holistic review means well-rounded. That doesn't mean that. Holistic review means they're going to look at the whole student, not just the academic content or grades and standardized tests, the whole student. But being well-rounded is different, and we'll talk about that later. The next term I want to share with you is personal statement or college essay, right? Kind of interchangeable terms. The personal statement or college essay is generally the essay that is sent to every single college or university that you apply to. So if you apply through the Common App or the Coalition app, they have a prompt. They have 7 different prompts on the Common App. And that is the Common App personal statement. That Common App personal statement is important, of course, because it goes to every single school you apply to. And of course, you need to put your best foot forward on a document that's going to go to every single school you apply to. But it also, to some degree, is a little bit less important because of the commonality of it going to every single school you apply to. Whereas the next definition, supplemental essays, right? These are your institutional specific essay questions. Cornell has one, Columbia has one, Penn has one, or actually more than one, multiples. That is a different than your personal statement Common App essay question. Those essays, supplemental essay questions, only go to the school of which asked it. So Cornell's going to have their own specific question. If I had to rate which ones are more impactful, of course, they're both important, but which one's more impactful most of the time is the supplemental essay question because of the specific nature of the question and because the enrollment managers at the school actually drafted the question, right? They're trying to elicit specific information to learn stuff that they think is important to them to determine how to comprise their community, their collegiate community. So supplemental essay question, institution specific, personal statement, that is the Common App question that goes to every single university. And then the next term I want to refer to is application story or application narrative. You're going to hear me say that a lot. And what I'm referring to is the whole application, right? So when I say we're going to have an application story or application narrative, we're saying that we need the application itself, right? That stuff you put down, the curriculum choices you've made, the recommendations that you receive, the essays that you write, the interview that you give, all of that has to contribute to the application story or the application narrative, right? The essay itself is one of the more direct ways of contributing to the application story or narrative, but is not the only way, and it certainly shouldn't be the only way for top tier schools. And then the last 2 phrases or definitions that I want to share before we move on to the nitty-gritty of college admissions is overrepresented academic major and underrepresented academic major. This is really important because it's fundamental to the strategy. If you apply to a university, college or university, and you happen to apply to an overrepresented academic major, meaning that there are more applicants to that specific major, more prospective applicants, that is, to that specific major than to the average majors at their university, then of course it's going to be more competitive to get in. Areas like computer science, biology, pre-med, those are almost always overrepresented academic majors at almost every single university across the country. An underrepresented academic major is the exact opposite, right? That there are less applications to these prospective majors than the average at that specific college or university. And of course, that means that it likely is easier to get in. Areas like Greek literature, the classics, oftentimes you see this in the humanities where there's significantly less interest amongst the total number of applicants as compared to, say, STEM spaces. It's really important to recognize how impactful an overrepresented selection or an underrepresented selection could be in the chances of you earning an offer of admission. I want to discuss today the myth of the well-rounded student. I hear over and over throughout my career that colleges and universities want well-rounded students. guidance counselors, teachers, parents, right? They all say that. Fundamentally not true. It just is not a fact. The truth is that colleges and universities, the admissions officers are charged with enrolling a well-rounded class, right? Not a well-rounded student. And so the charge of the admissions officers is to find a great historian, a great artist, a great physicist. You bring these great individuals together and you create this great, well-rounded community. The individual themselves, the well-rounded individual themselves, although being well-rounded in real life, of course, is valuable, but being well-rounded in this process is not overly valuable. And the reason for that is there's a multitude of reasons. The first main reason is that the application for admission is a limited platform, right? This is not an opportunity for you to tell everything about yourself. You have a personal statement, it's limited to 650 words. You have supplemental essays. Depending on the university, each one is limited. I think University of Chicago is one of the very few schools out there that has an unlimited supplemental essay. Most are limited. Look at NYU at 250 words. Penn has multiple essays, but 200 words, 150 words. And so the point here is that we have a limited platform and very specific questions that the college wants to know about you. And what happens is a well-rounded student will talk about a variety of areas, and they will do it in a very surface level because, when you're well-rounded, you don't have enough time to engage in depth most of the time in a specific area. Whereas someone who dove in and really investigated in depth one or two specific intellectual areas often appears more curious, often appears as if they were more engaged in the investigation and intellectual process. And so I would say it's definitely a myth that colleges and universities are seeking well-rounded students. They are seeking well-rounded classes. The best way to prepare for this, right? How do if they don't want well-rounded students, they want more specific students, how do we go about doing that? We'll learn more about that in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and energy listening to me today. I'm really excited to get this YouTube channel rolling. I think we're going to have a lot of really compelling, insightful information. I have lots of friends and colleagues in the space. They're going to join me on this channel. I encourage you to like this video, follow our channel. You will learn more about college admissions than you ever imagined. And hopefully we will empower you to make strategic, intentional decisions that lead to the results that you're looking for. Thank you.